the fact. First question is carryover from the week before, excuse me, 6 weeks before. This is from Mech, who I do not see on the call, so I will verbalize this. We're getting more questions from customers and prospects to use K8, that's Kubernetes, to deploy GitLab. For context, questions from a prospect there's a Google Doc. Follow-up questions. How far are we from testing Helm chart deployment at scale on .com? I see some SREs on the deliverability team here. I will hand that over to maybe Jarv. Are you here?
Yeah, oh, sure. So we are using GitLab's Helm chart for GitLab.com, but we're only using it for a couple services right now. We started using it for the registry service, and that worked out pretty well because registry is a standalone stateless service. It didn't have any other dependencies. And then the next service we used it for was Mailroom, which is also a pretty standalone service. It does connect to Redis, but currently we have a single production Kubernetes cluster. We have also a staging cluster. And we have those two services running in it, and we are planning to move some of the Sidekick queues next, and that's going to happen. We're already in the planning phase of this, and that's probably going to happen early next year. Were there any other details you'd like to know about the Kubernetes migration?
Follow-up note, we do have a slate of services or components of our stack that we are considering. So it's going to be piecemeal. We'll keep moving things over, and eventually we'll have a considerable portion of the application infrastructure on Kubernetes. It will never, I should never say never, but it's likely to never be everything, especially taking into account some of our workloads with Git file nodes. All right, question B was, I believe, already answered, and Jarv, you already answered about registering Mailroom. Okay, great. All right, Michael, are you on the call this week as well? Would you like to verbalize your question? Perhaps not the same Michael. I see a couple Michaels. Don't know who this was. All right, a new support agent started Monday, so it's 6 weeks ago. Welcome. I hope the first 6 weeks went well. Yet to explore much of the currently developed Kubernetes features, has container attached storage been explored, or is it being used currently? I don't know the answer to that question. We may need to come back to it unless someone else on the call has insights. Okay.
Doesn't ring any bells. I would be inclined to offer a tentative no or not yet.
Yeah, I'm inclined to lean towards no, but I don't want to say outright.
Right.
Okay, William, would you like to verbalize your question?
Yeah, Anthony, I was recently out at AWS reInvent, got to talk to a lot of our customers in the field. A lot of them were very, very happy. Some of them were not as happy about a recent outage, and I just wanted to kind of track down the issue and hear some of the state there. It looks like Dave posted the incident issue, which is 8528 in the infrastructure tracker. But I was wondering if you could just on this call give a little bit of a summary of that retro.
Sure. We had a synchronous retro. I believe the meeting was recorded. I can try and dig up the link to that afterwards as well. The main takeaway from this was that we have, without summarizing the incident itself, I think that's done quite well in the issue. So I'd encourage folks to go there and take a look. The major walk away from this was a slate of 13 corrective actions, a number of which are currently in progress, 3 of which have been closed. So as far as uptime goes, I think we have also metrics that we can publish. November was a bit of a rocky month for us. That is certainly true. December's off to a bit of a better start. Is there anything specific that you heard as a theme beyond hey, folks aren't really happy because no one, including us, is happy with the incident, the subsequent performance issues.
Yeah, I can share. I had a lengthy conversation. This was an individual developer. Their own projects were on GitLab.com, and they were basically, they came by the booth to ask for advice on what can I do. Is there something I can do to avoid this uptime, or when I'm down and I can't access, I can't get work done. Basically, what can I do about that? And they were asking about potentially self-hosting. So my advice was I highly recommended against self-hosting. I basically said, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know all the details, but I know we have been staffing greatly. I know our team, all of you have been tremendously improving things incrementally as we go. And so my basic advice was, I'm sorry for this outage. Things are getting better, and I have personally seen that over time. So my personal trust is in GitLab.com, and I'd highly recommend not self-hosting. But then that was kind of like the ask on their part. And honestly, I'm not sure if there's anything like, maybe not storing large files or some other nuanced thing that relates to some types of outages that maybe some action a user could perform to be more resilient against outages. I don't know what that would be, but maybe that's a fair question for the team.
I think that's a more answerable question, so thank you. And I imagine there are different responses that any of the many SREs on this call could offer with unique perspective. Because this issue wasn't caused by any customer behavior. This was an error that we imposed on ourselves, unintended consequences of a configuration change. So users themselves, we're looking to protect users from inadvertently impacting themselves and every other user on .com, because we don't have a lot of isolation in place. So we're continuing to work with development to make certain that application limits are a focus and a priority. Oftentimes it's API rate limiting or parallelism in builds that runs off in a combination of not having one and having too much of the other wreaks havoc. 50,000 concurrent CI jobs running, all trying to do exports on project repositories, things like that. So I suppose to answer that question directly, we say be hyper vigilant about what actions you're taking against the API. We currently give users a lot of power there without a lot of, we give them unchecked power, perhaps in ways that we shouldn't. So that's one area. Any other SREs have ideas? Lots of things I'm sure we've talked about.
Sure. I'm Cameron. I'm one of the SREs, and my advice to people who are using GitLab.com, I guess in this case, there isn't a lot of things that you could specifically do to avoid it, but you can definitely complain, tell us what didn't work, tell us what the impact was like, because getting that negative feedback when this stuff happens helps us understand what that impact is and make sure that we give it the proper attention to make sure that the people who are using GitLab.com don't have to worry about this in the future. We don't want to worry about it either, and that's why we had so many corrective actions come out of this particular event, so that we can all sleep easy knowing that we're not going to make that same mistake. We're not going to have a similar outage with a similar profile. There will probably be others in the future, just due to the fact that GitLab.com is not a static piece of software. But even when that experience is bad, getting that feedback from people who use GitLab.com, knowing what was painful, even if it's just this isn't slow, or I'm not getting the response I feel I should, that's all good stuff, so that the product gets better, and that includes the product of the service.
Hi, this is Matt Smiley. I'm another one of the SREs. I would say that I would add to what Anthony and Cameron have just said, that as a developer, you can obviously just to state the obvious, you can obviously still work with your local clone of any Git repository. If the inability to get productive work done was based on lack of access to CI pipelines, for example, we don't really have a good answer to that. When you can't access the service, you can't push your commits, or you can't trigger pipelines manually. That's just a cost of having software as a service. But I would like to add that while self-hosting is absolutely a viable option, the .com service that we operate has a great deal of internal redundancy that is really cumbersome to operate in a self-hosted environment. There are absolutely reasons to run large GitLab installations in a self-hosted manner, but that's almost certainly not what this developer is talking about. Like, and we can talk more about that offline if that's of any interest to you. But like, for example, we're actively working on understanding how this particular failure cascaded to a broader scope than we expected. That's one of the corrective actions. Where in other aspects of resiliency, we're currently actively working on addressing several single points of failure in the GitLab architecture that's going to be feasible to address in a .com scale deployment, but really isn't practical in self-managed unless you've got a team of people to manage it. Does that sort of give a little bit more color to the answers?
Yeah, this is all tremendously helpful, and that's a great summary of my advice to this particular person, based on my conversations with our large customers that self-host. Essentially, yeah, this is a massive undertaking. You know, kind of as a small project or individual developer, you really do not want to take on all of this effort and all of this risk. The value of having this team run it is great, and so I think that everyone is always you know, frustrated when they can't do something that they want to do, and I think that's very reasonable response. And so I was super happy because you know, I said to them, you know, well, we're very transparent. We post the retro online, and the issue will be online. And they said, oh yeah, I've already been in that, and I've seen all of that, and that's a reason I love GitLab. So that was great feedback to the company as a whole, and to this team in particular, that we make those issues public. And so that was nice for me as like a booth worker to be able to just say like, yes, that's there, and they knew about it. But yeah, that was my advice as well, is that if you're self-managing, there is a lot of complexity, and if you're a large enterprise and you know, have thousands, tens of thousands of users on a system, then it maybe makes sense. But for an individual developer, it is way more pain to self-manage.
Yeah, plus I totally agree. And plus, as other folks have mentioned, GitLab is a really fast moving target. Staying on top of upgrades is, you know, it's a meaningful investment of time if you're doing self-managed. So yeah, if it's a single person or a small team, I mean, if they're interested in running self-managed, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you do get a lot of benefit from running on a managed service. Cool. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, Lyle, I see you on the call. Would you like to verbalize question number 4?
Yeah, happy to. I was just wondering sort of what, if anything, can other departments do to make your jobs easier? And if you wanted to interpret it in a negative kind of way, like what frustrates you when you interact with other departments?
I will pass and let other people. I think I'm saying that because I think I have better points of communication to voice those frustrations, as well as continue to improve on a lot of the communication channels that Dave and I have developed for the team. So I'd like to hear from other SREs in the group.
This is Matt again. I love it. People are super supportive. It's awesome. Anytime I have questions, you know, it's really my main problem is finding out where to ask that question to get, to get it in front of the right people. And, that's, the more I'm at GitLab, the easier it is to find those places. But yeah, people are super supportive and very helpful. I love it.
To make some of my statements clarified, joining the Gitaly team would help us greatly, because right now, one of our biggest operational pains is the fact that Gitaly is singly homed on 45 different servers, which means we don't have a single point of failure. We have 45 single points of failure, and we need to get Gitaly HA built out as quickly as possible and continue to iterate on Gitaly availability so that we can continue serving without, and do maintenance at the same time. Right now, we have basically no way to do maintenance on the Git storage servers without taking down users for extended periods of time. And that's difficult to stomach as an SRE. As far as making Rails better, yeah, basically anything we can do to improve the performance of the Rails stack, caching improvements, memory efficiency improvements, the better squeezing performance out of the existing hardware we have, making it more efficient.
I put a note there for a rate limiting and application limits in general. I know that there was a recent case where someone was spamming us with spam issues at a rate of, I think it was 600 a minute or so. And these sort of things can cause us a lot of pain. And so I would say just helping us to get application limits implemented, and also just having a little bit more awareness of those types of problems, as well as like the infra-dev issues. I also was going to write that, and this is more for backend development, but just being aware of all of the different errors that we see on GitLab.com. This is being aware of like what's going on in Sentry, what's going on in logs, to help reduce the number of broken windows. Because I think the fewer broken windows we have, the easier it is for us to spot new problems that arise when we do deployments.
What about in terms of like just interactions on Slack? Like if I notice something's wrong, I don't know, it's easy to just kind of swoop and poop into the SRE channels. And is that the best way to help you?
I would say yes. That's I wouldn't call it swoop and poop. I like that expression, but I never consider it that at all. Like I think it's really great when people do, and I think more often than not, I feel like if there is a problem, especially on GitLab.com, please like let us know in the production channel or in the SRE lounge. I also keep tabs on other channels as well, just to kind of monitor what's going on and what people are complaining about, if there are any complaints. But yeah, definitely don't feel shy, and definitely let us know.
I wanted to add, this is Alex. I wanted to add that if you feel like it's okay to tell us something you think you might already know, that we might already know, because in the midst of an incident, like more data points can really be a very helpful. So, like Jar said, don't be.
This is Dave. I'll actually speak up too. I think the other thing that would help us though, in terms of trying to steer a little bit of Lyle's comment, is that just dropping something in Slack and incident management channel is not going to start the production team looking into, or the infrastructure team looking into an incident. We actually have ways to work with PagerDuty, and we're working on improving those too. But PagerDuty is our escalation path. So Slack is our asynchronous communication channel. It will not generate an immediate response. And using threads in Slack is important, particularly in incident management. So a little bit of Slack etiquette actually does help us if there is a thread going on, because things scroll by very quickly there. So I would ask that there is I don't think we're doing anything wrong there. I just like being mindful of how that communication happens is useful. And then back up at E, I actually noted we have a merge request in flight for if it's slow and things are going on, we're looking at getting a little bit more content on that merge request of advice in the handbook for if you've got an it's slow coming from either you that you're noticing something or a customer, you know, talking about using the performance bar, grabbing HAR files from a particular browser, information from Chrome from the developer tools, but also help us looking into performance problems. So we've got a merge request in flight for the handbook too that I think would be useful.
Yes, more information is better. And we'll do a good job of making that frictionless for you. When you get into Slack right now, I know there's been some confusion. Do I page with the /pd command? Some of those are gone. PagerDuty upgraded their API to V2 and we tried to integrate some things. It hasn't worked so well. There's a /start incident command that does work. It's in the handbook somewhere with some failures here and there, but it still opens issues. An issue will actually get the attention of an SRE, an issue with an incident label on it. That, and as Dave said, the pager escalation is the right way to go. There's an epic I linked in the doc. It's 100. Amar is working to set up a set of integration points with all of our escalation tools, Slack, Zoom, PagerDuty, GitLab, so that we'll have a single point for kickoff. So take a look at Epic 100. There's some good context there. Once that's rolled out in the next, probably guess before the next one of these AMAs, that will be the formal policy for kicking off an incident. You'll see it'll be much easier. Slack's done some really cool stuff lately too. They've got something called a workflow builder, which is just a JSON definition of a UI GUI interface. So you can do a / command and then it pops up, like we're all familiar with PTO Ninja and Google Calendar and things like that, where you can use buttons and drop downs and menus and all the like to what will hopefully be pre-populating the incident issues and hitting the correct escalation policies, et cetera, et cetera. So we are working on that. And as Dave pointed out, more information, well, fields for more information for you to include in there. Like, did you try this first before you acknowledged, yes, I did. I'm not just letting you know, hey, I hit a 500. Because it's good to know, but context is better. I don't see any additional questions. So this meeting is scheduled until the top of the hour, but in GitLab fashion, we can end on time 5 minutes early, unless there is another question. Going once, twice. Okay, I will figure out how to get the recording up to unfiltered. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you all again in 6 weeks. Happy holidays. See you in the new year.